Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to number 9 of the Irv Homer Show here, broadcasting from irvhomer.com. It is our 9th broadcast in this series of ongoing commentary and information. And from the 9 programs that I've done, apparently this is one of the strongest type of private broadcasting that I've been aware of in my entire career. We have received email from as far away as Arkansas, and responding to our emails when people request some information. It is amazing that the studio here at irvhomer.com now reaches around the world, and it is growing each program. Once again, if you miss it at 6 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time, you can certainly pick it up on the archive, and that's where we get most of our viewership. In the fall, when weather changes, we'll probably change our live time, but we're working the bugs out, and so I figured this would be about the best time to do it. Once again, we'll be adding a chat room for the show in the fall, and probably be taking phone calls live when we decide what time of the day would be most appropriate to get the biggest response when we do this type of a program. The big breaking stories are 2, and before I go into those stories, before I came on the air today, this afternoon, I suppose about 12 o'clock, I was made aware of the death of one of the men who were instrumental in getting me on Channel 6 on Inside Story some 15 years ago. And that was a man, if you were a TV6 viewer for years, you'd recognize the name of Paul Norton. Paul, over the years, had become a close friend. He then retired from Channel 6 and moved about 5 miles from where my summer home was in Lewes, Delaware. Unfortunately, Paul passed away from a massive stroke Wednesday morning, and it came as a shock because Paul was involved in riding a bicycle and exercising and watching his diet and watching his weight and all of the things that I don't do, or some of us don't do. But unfortunately, Paul passed away, and I will be attending his funeral next Wednesday in Lewes, Delaware. By coincidence, and there are some folks that don't believe in coincidence, if you read the paper of a gentleman by the name of Regan Henry, Regan Henry was one of the owners of WWDB Radio during that transitional period and the turmoil that existed at that radio station, and WHAT at the same time, which was the AM outlet. Regan Henry passed away. Regan was one of the richest African American lawyers, station owners in the country. But Regan lived a very low profile life. The fact of the matter is, there was no notice of his death, no services, cremation, everything about Mr. Henry will be kept strictly in secret. And so there were 2 giants in my broadcasting career that I knew and worked with, and both have died this week, along with a woman that I had met many years ago. And her name was Sylvia Weber, and she was the widow of Frederick Mann. Now, many of you may not know who Frederick Mann is, but Frederick Mann is the person and the philanthropist that the Mann Music Center in Fairmount Park is named after. Thank goodness somebody decided to keep the name Mann Music Center and then decided to change it to some other obscure name. But Frederick Mann was a philanthropist and a Philadelphian that gave an awful lot back to the city of Philadelphia. And I had the privilege of being in his home many years ago. Didn't have a friendly relationship with it, but with him or his wife. But the icons of Philadelphia are rapidly dying. And I just thought I would bring you up to date on some of these folks: Paul Norton, Regan Henry, and Mrs. Mann. Along last week of Ed Harvey and Edie Huggins. So it looks like we're starting to bite the dust, folks. And that's why I say live each day as you can. Don't take life too serious. Have fun. This is not a dress rehearsal, whether you're young or old. As I scan the news today, there are two stories, but the one that's getting the most headlines is the John Edwards affair and the former Governor McCreevy divorce settlement. But there is something going on in the world today that is much more significant to the security and safety of the world, and that is the war that broke out between the country of Georgia and Russia. And many folks, I suppose, will hear that Georgia and Russia are fighting, and they'll want to know why North Carolina and South Carolina don't join with Georgia and attack Russia. Well, it's not that Georgia, folks. It's not that Georgia. Georgia was part of the Soviet Union, and at the time the Soviet Union was disbanded, Georgia broke away. The Soviet Union says, no, we're not giving you the privilege of breaking away. You will still be part of Russia. And so in a fight of independence, a war broke out between Russia and Georgia yesterday. And you're going to say, well, Irving, what has that got to do with us? Well, Georgia has 2,500 troops that are fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq in support of our president's misgiving and our country's mistake, in my opinion, of getting into that war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And let me clear why I say mistake. I have never been involved in a fight that I didn't want to win. I don't know of anyone who ever got in a ring to wrestle, box, play football, play soccer, basketball, that wanted to play for a tie. I thought the ultimate purpose is to win. And in knowing why and how we got into Iraq and Afghanistan, it was another no-win war. We didn't intend to win in Korea. We didn't intend to win in Vietnam. And I just think that in reading the Constitution of the United States, which I hold as close to me as some revered writings of my parents, and of Scripture, I suppose, both the Old and New Testament, the Quran, good parts and all of the Bhagavad Gita, doesn't say anything about here fighting for it to a tie. Doesn't say anything about it. So there were 2,500 Georgian troops, not from the state of Georgia in the United States, but Georgia in Russia, that are fighting as allies to our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. And before I came on the air, the Georgia Parliament has requested of the United States to fly those troops back to Georgia to be engaged in this confrontation between Russia and Georgia. I have no idea what the outcome is going to be. We have no idea of how far this thing is going to spread. But we do have some 2,000 civilians in Georgia, in addition to the 2,500 troops of the country of Georgia fighting for us in Afghanistan and Iraq. That kind of puts us in opposition to Russia. Of course, the president, knowing the delicacy of international affairs, decided to go to a communist country, an oppressive country, a country that has been cited by the Amnesty International, by the United Nations, by every democratic country in the world as being a tyrannical dictatorship. And our president decides to give them credibility by appearing at the opening that is going to be at 8 o'clock tonight and be a production, ladies and gentlemen, likes of which you've never seen. See, dictators don't have to go through litigation. They make up their mind to spend billions of dollars for sports, and so they've spent billions of dollars and moved millions of people for this great television spectacular where some, what they say, 40 billion people around the world will be watching it. But the president probably thinks it's more important to go watch games than it is to stay in the White House in the Situation Room to see what's developing in Afghanistan, Iraq, and developing in Georgia and Russia. I see no advantage in giving this communist country any more credibility than it asks for itself. I suppose, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a country that supplies you, sells you, the biggest percentage of things that we buy and use at a price that is generated by slave labor, I guess it's human nature for we Americans who say, if you live in America, try to buy American. And I guess it's maybe false patriotism or false pride in this country that I watched America disappear to overseas manufacturers. I've seen American industry leave the United States for cheaper labor. And I've seen no one in the United States getting bent out of shape about it. Slave labor in Indonesia and Thailand, China. Don't bother us Americans. Oh, we'll be patriotic to kill them if they decide to attack us. But we'll borrow billions of dollars from China, paid for by the backs of the poor people in China, and we will use their toasters and their televisions and you name it, we've got it. But the big thing is the Phillies are drawing more people today than they ever drew before. So I'm not too concerned about John Edwards and his picadillos with another person while he's married to a wife. I'm not too concerned about the fact that some indiscretion in the McGreevy family took place and she's only going to receive $1,000 a month for child support, or whether the Phillies are winning or losing, or whether the Eagles are going to have a game tonight. I'm concerned about the possibility of a war that already broke out between Russia and Georgia. And it would seem to me that sensible politicians would be more concerned about world events than they are about a bunch of games being played in China. Oh, I'll watch it tonight because I like extravaganzas. I don't like fireworks. But I'll watch it tonight. And I'll watch it knowing that I suppose about 60% or 70% of the things that I have in the studio here and in my home are paying for it by me consuming Walmart products, Walmart being the biggest customer in the world that China has. And I was at Walmart today buying Chinese stuff. Mainly because you can't get American stuff anyplace. Oh, I can get a lawyer. There's a couple law firms in Philadelphia with 400 or 500 lawyers. A lot of them. I need a lawyer, I get a lawyer. And they're not from China, they're from here. So we grow lawyers. We grow litigation. We grow nothing. But they grow, they manufacture. We buy Japanese cars. We buy Swiss cars. We buy German cars. But we got lawyers in America. Boy, have we got lawyers in America. And let me move on to and direct this to Bill O'Reilly, who bragged about the fact last night that he has 4 million viewers every night. Well, my comment to Bill O'Reilly is this. Bill, I'm happy for your success. But do you know why you're successful, Bill O'Reilly? Because the other television programs are lousy. I'm tired of looking at the Home Shopping Network. I'm tired of watching jewelry at a discount. I'm tired of watching cartoons. I'm tired of watching old rerun movies. So what is the thing that generates interest when the other television programs are so boring, with freakazoids with orange hair and guys playing a guitar and yelling and screaming like a nutcase? You watch O'Reilly, which is also comic relief. One of the comments that Mr. O'Reilly made last night was about the decision of the military court that came down with the decision of bin Laden's chauffeur of 5.5 years, probably may serve 5 months as a result of time already spent in prison. How could that happen? O'Reilly went crazy. How could that happen? Send me an email. Blah, 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 blah. All the Michigan dramatics of television. Well, I suggest to many folks that are frustrated. I, many years like you, also frustrated at court decisions. You read the headlines of a murder that took place and the guy gets probation. Hit and run, probation. Guy steals a loaf of bread, 20 years. 3 strikes and you're out. What did he do for the 3 strikes? Well, he stole a car, got caught with a little pot in his pocket, and probably tried to pick up a hooker in Kensington. So he gets 3 strikes, you're out, in jail, rest of your life. Well, if you took a look at the in-depth of the decision from the decision by the military court in Guantanamo Bay, guidelines had already been established for sentencing procedures. And this was the maximum they can give him, Mr. O'Reilly, under the guidelines established by the United States government, our judiciary, our Attorney General, our military tribunal. They set the sentencing guidelines, and this guy fell in there. And as I've said many, many times with frustration, and you're frustrated, I know it. I know human nature. I've been around long enough to know it. Why don't they have more time? Have you ever sat in a courtroom, ladies and gentlemen? Have you ever sat and watched the evidence introduced? You ever watch defense lawyers, who most of them are former prosecutors? You ever see them go to work and create a reasonable doubt in the minds of jurors? They're experts. I at one time thought that eyewitness accounts were the best type of evidence to get someone convicted. I was wrong. You give 10 people something to watch and then have them repeat what they saw, you'll get 10 different versions. So eyewitness accounts are not that great. Sometimes circumstantial evidence is better. But the evidence is there. It's a matter of interpreting it. And I would suggest people like O'Reilly, before they shoot their mouths off, read the testimony, probably about 2,000 pages long, of what took place at that trial and the evidence that was presented. And apparently the prosecution for Hamdan, I think his name is, wasn't sufficient to get a conviction of being a murderer, or being a terrorist, or being anything else that the O'Reillys of the world have built up in your minds without reading the evidence, without being in the courtroom, without seeing what went on. But all they know is he's a terrorist, they ought to hang him. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way. And folks, I'm not criticizing you, because I used to feel the same way until I get an education from a couple of judges that are friends of mine. I've been at trials. I've been at the MOVE trial. I've been at many trials. Been in a murder trial. Read transcripts of trials. Which people thought the guy was innocent. I said, not from this evidence. To me, he's guilty. In reverse, found guilty, and I said, no, this guy's innocent. There's nothing here of credible evidence. So I could have gotten on the air many years ago and screamed and yelled and got a lot of people all stirred up. Yeah, we need it. Them damn liberal judges. You know, that great rating. Used to be communists. Now they're liberal judges. Well, if you take a look at the history of the Supreme Court of the United States, you'll find something very interesting. Many conservative judges that are appointed to the United States Supreme Court by conservative or liberal presidents, once they get to the court and hear the evidence that is presented before the Supreme Court in federal cases, conservative judges have known to become liberals, and liberal judges have known to swing over to being conservatives. Now, doesn't it frighten you, ladies and gentlemen? We have 9 Supreme Court justices, and all we need is a majority. So one judge with a lifetime appointment can dictate the law of the land. It's 4-4 in a decision. The 5th judge, who may write the majority opinion, he may write the minority opinion. But that one judge can become the law of the land. And I would suggest, before the O'Reillys and the people that, in my opinion today, behind microphones and television cameras, should do a little more homework before they stir you up. Before they stir you up and get this country so divided and so ignorant about what happens, how cases are resolved, and what our court system is like, we're going to end up with a dictatorship. And the reason I say that is because you people want a dictatorship. You don't want to be free. And you'll say, oh yes, we do. I say, no, you don't. Because you take a look at the attachments that you have in your life that dictate how you think, act, you're going to find out that very few people have the ability to think for themselves. You attach yourself to something, some ideology, some philosophy. It sounds good. I like the guy. He dresses nice. He entertains me. We should have a country in America today where our population is about 300 million. We should have 300 million leaders, no followers. No followers. You can adhere to an idea, an ideology, a belief, a religion. Why would you want to follow somebody? Think for yourself. Choose the path that you're comfortable with. Not that you're frustrated with. The path you're comfortable with, and follow that path. Then you won't die of heart attack, have stroke, get diabetes, get all these. I say that 90% of the illnesses of America today are caused by stress. Not by work, by stress. Why do I say that? Most people will spend more time exercising. You see them jogging on the street, riding their bicycles, pumping iron. Very few of them ever pick up a book and read it. Read the Constitution, read the United Nations Charter. We have more gyms in America today than we have libraries. And gyms are open 24 hours a day, and libraries only have, some of them only 5 days a week. Now, I'm not criticizing people who exercise and take care of their bodies. But your mind is also part of your body. So why don't you exercise the whole thing? We have Bally's and Bailey's and Curves and Golds and gyms all over the place. Every time there's a vacant supermarket, they put a gym in there. Not accounting for the billions of dollars that are spent on equipment that you buy for your home that you never use. You got weights in every garage, bench presses, ready to move, you got them all over the place. Well, how many books do you have in your library? What book have you read recently? We're getting back to our court system. Eventually, you're going to want a dictatorship so that you won't have to think. It's getting too hard to think. Let the pundits on radio and television, the empty suits, they refer to politicians as empty suits. Let me tell you something. You have more empty suits on radio and television today than you have in Washington, D.C. or Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or Trenton, or any of the capital cities where this program is going to. And I fear for the future of this country for two reasons. Number one, America is disappearing, and we're getting a whole new, diverse population in America. I made a prediction about 50 years ago that eventually America, if the birth rate continues the way it is going to be black, not white. It may be half white and half black from the influence of Central South America and from African birth. We do not have a European immigration problem in America. Now, you saw me doing this, right? Let me tell you why. You have a globe in your house? Very few people have a globe of the world. You have maps. Mercator projections, the flat map. But take a look on the map, and you will see so many parallels north of the equator and so many parallels south of the equator. All around the globe is where all the action is. The Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, the Scientific Revolution, now the Technological Revolution. North of those parallels, with all due respect to people that live in the tundra and the Eskimos and all that, what the hell have they ever contributed to it? Has an Alaskan ever invented an automobile? Or even a sled? Motorized? No. Thank God they got dogs. And I am not making this a personal issue. I'm merely pointing out the reality of life. South of certain latitudes, you could blow the whole part of the earth off. The earth could operate the way it does within those latitudes. So America was born, basically, from the European culture, the European technology. Oh, I know the Egyptians were great builders and great philosophers and great this, and the Greeks and so forth and so on. They might fit into that latitude. But the culture of the people on planet Earth have been limited to the industrial, the agricultural, the technological, and industrial belts around the globe. Think about it. And what makes America one of the most blessed countries in the world, because of size and the Constitution of the United States, and Great Britain for giving us an opportunity to tell them that, we want independence, is that we have a 4-season climate in America. All at the same time. All at the same time. So we have necessity of consumerism, winter, spring, summer, and fall. I love this particular part of America. I love 4 seasons. I love the spring, I love the summer, I love the fall, I love the winter. You know why? Because I know it's going to rotate and disappear. Just about the time you get tired of the heat, bingo, it's fall. By the time you get tired of the fall, it's winter. By the time you get finished winter, it's spring. By the time you get finished with spring, it's summer. So we have that 4 seasons here in this part of the world where we don't get bored with the climate. And America has been blessed because it is located in that 4-season belt. While we have heat here, the manufacturing heaters up north. And while the manufacturing heaters up north, they're using boats down south, and swimming pools, bathing suits, and summer gear, while they're wearing leather jackets and parkas in the northern part of the United States. So we've been blessed. It didn't happen. It's not because we're so geography, the location, the physical location of the United States on our planet is one of the reasons that we're one of the economic and manufacturing giants, in addition to our Constitution. But we are losing the European influence in America. And we are getting a preponderance of people with a totally different culture than something I discussed last week that nobody knows about, capitalism. As we get an influx of more and more cultures that are foreign to European finances, as we get more and more people coming to America that are not part of the Industrial Revolution or the technological revolution or the medical revolution, we must lower our standards to accept these folks. I am not demeaning these people. If I am used to living in a desert as a nomad, looking for an oasis with my camel, I'm not conducive to driving in New York's traffic on Broadway. I can't survive there. By the same token, you can't take a cab driver from New York's Broadway and put him in the middle of Africa and have him find out where there's water or what type of food he can eat. So we're not doing an immigration gradually, we're doing it massively. And so we're ending up with slums, ghettos, homeless, unemployed, underemployed, illegal immigrants, you name it. And so the transition I see in America today, I predicted 50 years ago. We're not homogenous. We're polarized. Catholics live with Catholics, Jews live with Jews. Blacks live with blacks, Asians live with Asians. Oh, we associate once in a while at work. But we're not homogenous. We do not have an integrated society. I know in your church you have black people on Sunday. Thank you, Lord. And I know in your black church you have white people. Thank you, Lord. I don't see too many blacks in synagogue. Because we don't convert them. I don't get into that again. So think a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, about what is the future of America. I spoke about the ignorance of people knowing how our court system works and how people get sentenced. I know most of you know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Because a person is found not guilty in a trial does not necessarily mean that they did not commit the crime. I repeat, because a person is found not guilty in the trial, it doesn't mean that they did not commit the crime. It means that the prosecution could not make a strong enough argument to the jury or to the judge if it's a non-jury trial that this individual did not commit the crime. So guilty people will walk free. And innocent people will be convicted. Because if the prosecution is smart enough, he can convince the jury, because of a weak defense lawyer, that defendant committed the crime. And put that reasonable doubt there. Now, there is a difference between civilly losing a case and criminally losing a case. And I think the classic instance was one in our time, and I hope many of you folks realize the significance of it, and that was the O.J. Simpson case. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty. Not that he was innocent. Not guilty. Because Darden, prosecuting attorney, and his associate could not present enough evidence to get a conviction from maybe a biased jury. And so Ron Goldman's family went after O.J. Simpson civilly. In civil litigation, you can lose, even though you were found innocent on the criminal charge. Because in civil litigation, folks, there's no such thing as presenting a reasonable doubt. The evidence is presented by the prosecution and by the defendant. The evidence is then weighed. Maybe not the prosecution, but by the plaintiff. The plaintiff files a charge civilly against the defendant, and the evidence is presented. The jury says, you know what? This guy's guilty. Not of the crime, because that's not what they're dealing with. But the evidence is guilty. He loses this case civilly. Then the judge, through sentencing guidelines, imposes the sentence. And of course we have the appeal system. So I don't want you to get all upset from these O'Reilly characters who are making millions of dollars at your expense by not educating you, but getting you all stirred up with emotion. It's like a three-ring circus. What's O'Reilly going to do next? Oh, Pinhead's a did with the what the hell did he learn from O'Reilly? Give me one thing you've ever learned from O'Reilly's case. I learned that he fought a lawsuit which he sexually molested one of his producers. I got a briefcase, which he denied, of course. But he will sit behind the microphone, and I'm sure tonight he'll talk about John Edwards and his indiscretion with this young lady during his campaign for president of the United States. To understand the problems that we're having internationally, there are two books that you should get copies of. One is the Constitution of the United States. The other, as I've said, is the United Nations Charter. And folks, I'm not a scholar, but I can read the two of them. I can read the two of them. And maybe you will understand what obligations we have with the UN Charter and what obligations we have with the Constitution of the United States. To clear your mind, you can do it yourself, either through your computer or through a copy of the Constitution. And read Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States. I'll show you how long it is. It's this wide, from here to here. Very little. It will explain to you Afghanistan, Iraq, our possible involvement. I repeat, our possible involvement in Georgia and Russia. The Constitution of the United States specifically spells out that all treaties that are ratified by the United States Congress shall become the law of the land and shall be imposed by any judges herewith. So we signed a treaty with the United Nations. By law, the United Nations Charter is the law of the land. Now there are abstentions within the UN Charter itself, so we can abstain from a vote. But we're obligated under the United Nations Charter to do certain things. Other countries are obligated to do certain things in cooperation with us. But what I fear more than anything else, I remember a story that occurred to me during the war. I had left my base on the weekend. I had off. There were no missions that Saturday or Sunday. And I befriended 3 Italians who had family in America. And Joe Bradici, I used to call him Joe Bradici. He says, no, Bradici. He was a young law student at the University of Bari on the East Coast in Italy. And his dad was the tax collector of a little town called Torre Maggiore. And they had a spare bedroom with a nice soft bed and a bathtub, which I didn't have at Tortorella 1, which is the air base in Foggia, Italy. So when I had any time, I would take Joe in the Jeep. We would go up and visit his family, have a great dinner. I'll never forget one time, went up there and just had these pigs they had running around the farm. I said, boy, they're neat. 2 weeks later, I was eating it called sausage. I said, where's the... Oh, we just had it for dinner. Oh, thank you, Ram. Homemade sauce, absolutely delicious. But I ate the little pig I saw 2 weeks before. Well, his dad was the tax collector and explained to me the system of taxation in Italy. And I didn't want to drive on the road at night because during the war, Italy did not exactly have I-95 or the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And an open Jeep is not exactly a Mercedes-Benz sedan. So Joseph and I left his parents' house after a delightful meal. We're driving from Bari southwest to Foggia, Italy. On the road, I guess we were doing about 30 miles an hour. You didn't do no 60, 70 miles an hour. Appeared to be a big pig, big furry pig. Said to Joe, look at that thing. He said, look at that, yeah. Well, we had some time to kill. It was still a little light. I said, let's chase it. Now Joe wasn't supposed to be armed, but I made sure they had a gun. And I had a weapon. So we started chasing this thing, and it had tusks on it. It was a boar, a wild boar. And we're chasing this thing with a Jeep. And we drove into what appeared to be a cave or a tunnel. Had the headlights on. And the next thing I know, I saw the eyes of this thing because it had made a turn and was going to attack the Jeep. And I said to Joe, do I put it in reverse and go backward? Or do I try to make a U-turn and have that thing get into the Jeep? Well, we found a little place where I made the U-turn and I'm going out, and now the boar is chasing me and Joe and the Jeep, trying to get back to the road. Fortunately, we made it. Well, it was an experience that I made in my life. You chase something, that's fine. that thing decides to turn around and start chasing you, you may be in trouble. And I wasn't about to tangle or even try to shoot in a cave a wild boar. So we had many a good laugh out of that experience. After I came home, I still corresponded with Joe. He did graduate law school, and he's apparently very successful in Rome at the present time. He didn't pass away. I know he had a law firm there. The point I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is this, and why I'm a little afraid. Maybe not my time, maybe not your time, but you may have grandchildren, you may have children that are a lot younger. If China, which it is doing, is building up a military component where it has nuclear submarines off the coasts of the United States, both coasts, as we have off their coasts, as they have spy satellites flying over America, as we have spy satellites flying over China and Russia. Suppose China and Russia ever unite and make us the wild boar that starts chasing the United States. As we are trying to build up economically countries around the world, we've done a very good job with Japan, we did a great job now with China, we've done a great job with Russia. Our businesses, our money has no conscience. Our companies will go any place in the world if they can make a buck off the labor. Just travel around the world. You'll see the names of every American company plastered all over. You will see tonight on television American corporations that pay China billions of dollars of your money and my money to advertise how wonderful a communist country, the land of oppression, can have a party called the Olympics. Make no mistake about it. Russia and China are not friends of the United States. We defeated Russia in a Cold War. You know why? We outspent them. They had a bigger army than we had. They had more infantrymen in uniform than we had. They had a bigger navy than we had. They had more fighter planes than we had. But you know what they didn't have? What they didn't have? The money. They went broke in Afghanistan, where they lost 60,000 troops. And they had to pay cash for everything they bought on the world market for their military, including our military hardware, including a Ford plant that was built on the Kama River in Russia. But now the Russians learn, the Chinese learn, you may not be able to kill the Americans and wipe America off the face of the earth, because with nuclear bombs and nuclear incidents, but we can do something to America that'll bring them to their knees. They have the power, almost at this time, to economically destroy us. They almost have the economic power, with money surplus that they've got, to destroy our economy in this country. Look how happy you are that gas is now $3.75 a gallon. Hooray! I guarantee you people will be out buying SUVs this weekend, because gas has dropped almost 35 cents a gallon in 10 days. And you don't think the enemies of this country are watching our exuberance, our stock market, our unemployed, our homeless? Sure they are. And we're playing right into their hands.
by watching the games tonight. Let the games begin. The torch of freedom is now shining in Beijing, China. Sure it is. I was speaking to a mayor of a town here in Bucks County who was speaking about the virtue of the casino and the gambling industry in the state of Pennsylvania and how much revenue it's bringing in. Well, apparently, the good mayor, and he is a good mayor, for himself and his family and the people of Bucks County that he represents. He doesn't represent me. But I like him. I like him. But politics is a dirty game, so we'll get into that another time. The history of mankind is this. When the human race is in a crisis, it does three things. Church attendance in America is up. All faiths. You know why? Because we want God to save us. From Al-Qaeda, from terrorists, from those nasty Islamo-fascists, we want God to be on our side. I think God proved this week that he's really not on your side. Because a bus coming from a church turned over and some 30 people were killed. Why would he kill church-going people in a bus? And I believe it was in India, at some function, some religious function, 145 people died being trampled to death in a religious function. If it was a soccer game, it would be on the front page of the paper. If it was a football game, it would be on the front page of the paper. So I think God's paying too much attention to us. So if you run a bus, just make sure the driver is sober and you don't try anything fancy. So during a time of crisis, people will run to church. Places of worship, if you will. They will also look for entertainment. Entertainment of any kind. Entertain me. Entertain me. Give me sports. Give me movies. Movies generating $60, $70 million on a weekend. Entertain me. I don't want to think of the reality of how to survive this mess. The third thing is violence, child abuse, spousal abuse, even murder. Because the frustration level of people who under normal circumstance would probably be nice people suddenly go berserker. If you're an employer, let me ask you a question. I'm a semi-employer. I'd be afraid as hell right now to fire somebody. I really would. I'd be afraid as hell to fire anybody today. By happenstance, 2 weeks ago, I took a ride through Bristol by Simon & Schuster Warehouse. Simon & Schuster, you know, is owned by CBS. Last week, where I was driving, nice drive after dinner along the Delaware River, saw some gorgeous homes there. This guy gets fired by Simon & Schuster, goes into the parking lot and kills 2 people. Was this guy a scientist? No, the guy worked in a warehouse. But his security, because of the way things are today, he was so fragile mentally. I had no idea how to cope with it. Read papers in the Bucks County Courier-Times. Woman is desperate. A man is desperate. When he was working, his wife was fine. He ended up with, she died. He ended up with diabetes. They took his home away from him. Now the poor guy has no place to live with no legs. This is why people will then resort to drinking, church, gambling. Sure, the casinos are going to do great. So tonight on television before I came over, two families won $42 million. Hooray! I guarantee you people will flood next week to the lottery to try to hit that Powerball. So it is not by happenstance that people are flooding looking for God. It's not by happenstance that people are running to the casino to try to hit the big one or play the lottery. And it's not by happenstance that the Phillies and the Eagles will enjoy one of the greatest financial seasons they've ever had, while the consumer debt is escalating to a point where Atlanta last week wrote off $145 million worth of consumer credit debt they know they'll never collect it. One light thing before we end the program today occurred in Seattle, Washington. In Seattle, Washington, thanks, Ron. In Seattle, Washington, to provide a public service, the city of Seattle said we should put those self-sanitizing public toilets on the streets, which they did. It cost the city of Seattle $5 million to provide a service. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen these public toilets, but they're good, I think, for a certain amount of time. The door's locked. Do your thing. It sanitizes itself, flush it a little bit, come out, next person uses it. Well, because of the slobs in America, if you don't believe it, look at our highways. They found out after so many years that it cost $16,000 a piece to sanitize them and fix them after the pigs, American pigs, destroyed them. And so there ain't no place to go to the toilet in Seattle. Thank goodness the state of Delaware and even the state of Pennsylvania has rest areas. Some of them are magnificent. I applaud the states and I applaud the people who use them. But ladies and gentlemen, if you got to go to the bathroom, where do you go? Into a restaurant? Into a gas station? Where do you go? Let's look at life as it really is. A friend of mine bought a new car and he said, my God, he said, I got seat belts and airbags and whistles and it yells when I better at them. I said, don't blame the insurance companies and don't blame the automobile manufacturer. Blame the idiots, us, me included, who take chances on automobiles driving irresponsibly. We are our own worst enemy. If we drove more careful, if we obeyed the speed limit, if we drove sober, if we put the cell phone down, if we didn't worry about the GPS on the car, on the dashboard, maybe we would drive safer. But since we, ladies and gentlemen, including me, are irresponsible, the manufacturers charge us for our irresponsibility. The lawyers make a fortune out of litigation, and the government says, look what we're doing for it. It is us, folks. We are our own worst enemy. I beg of you, don't be your own worst enemy. We're broadcasting from irvhomer.com. Once again, my website is www.irvhomer.com. You can email me at evilirv@irvhomer.com. And this program is brought to you by RGH Systems. If you're interested in a computer problem, if you've got a computer problem of any kind whatsoever, or if you want to have this type of setup in your own place of business, in your home, you got something to say, You don't have to be a professional. Just get one of these setups that RGH system can put in your house. You can become a television star and be seen and heard all over the world. Their telephone number, RGH Systems, is 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. Now, on Wednesday, August the 13th, we're going to have, for a guest for an entire hour, the man whose name has suddenly emerged after about 5 or 6 years in how the casinos rip you off. He's not against gambling. He just wants the casinos to give you an even break. We'll show you his book called Comped. He'll explain to you about that. Bill Kearney will be our guest. Read today's Friday's Bucks County Courier-Times. You'll see Representative Paul Clymer put a whole article on the editorial page about it. Bill's name wasn't mentioned, but I think on Thursday, Bill had written an article that was on the front page of the Bucks County Courier-Times. So Bill Kearney will be our guest. You probably heard him on every radio station around the city of Philadelphia calling in on sports programs, aggravating Giordano and aggravating Howard Eskin and aggravating these guys. And they finally said, well, let him through. Well, Bill's a hell of a guy. You get an opportunity to see him in person. You got an opportunity to hear him in person. And if you have any questions about gambling or what the casinos have done to you, please give us a call, or on our email rather, at evilerv@irvhomer.com. Oh, one other thing, and I don't know, this is something personal. If there's anyone viewing the program today, anyone at all, who has been to doctor after doctor after doctor and had every examination, pulmonary, cardiac, breathing, that still has a chronic cough and they can't eliminate it with any of the things that they prescribe on television, any medication or inhalators that the doctor's given you. Nothing has worked for you. If you have trouble with a chronic cough, can come on at night, during the daytime, anytime, please contact me. I beg of you, please contact me on my email at evilerv@irvhomer.com. It is personally affecting me personally, and I don't ask too much of my listeners other than donate to the Sunshine Foundation, but this I beg of you. If you have a chronic cough and you're treating it and they can't find out what it is, please contact me on my email at evilerv@irvhomer.com, and we'll get in touch with you, and maybe we together can find out what this cough is from and how it can be eliminated. I'm Irv Homer. Thanks so much for viewing it. Enjoy it on the archive. We'll be back and do this all again. Have a great weekend.